buy Bitcoin. And don't do it via MicroStrategy's options. I don't overcomplicate a trade. Just do the trade.
$30+ trillion that is just getting exposure now. I think it's straight up for, next 5 years.
It's pretty straightforward as an asset. The liquidity indicators like Global M2 had stabilized and started going up. It leads Bitcoin. Bitcoin was following it almost perfectly. So I was starting to look for the bottom. It's going up. I'm seeing the market getting fearful over a narrative. And I'm like, well, what is the likely outcome here? Are they going to have 150%, a trillion% tariffs on China? No, they're going to reach something normal. So you've gone from peak headline fear to things could only be better from here.
Forget the noise and the complicated trades, just buy Bitcoin. That's Raoul Pal's clear message, and here's why he's doubling down. Global liquidity is rising, central banks are quietly injecting capital, the dollar is weakening, and sovereign wealth funds from the Middle East are pouring into Bitcoin. Meanwhile, traditional institutions are still waiting on regulatory clarity, but the smart money is already making move. This isn't just a recovery, it's the start of a full-scale Bitcoin bull market. In this interview, Raoul breaks down the macroeconomic setup, the liquidity surge, and why 2025 is shaping up to be one of Bitcoin's most explosive years yet. Let's dive into the interview with Raoul Pal.
Look, you don't have time. Don't miss out this 2025 bull run. Educate yourself first ahead of the crowd. We have created the ultimate step-by-step crypto cheat guide that will guide you this bull run. Unlock the secrets of crypto and make smarter investments today. Now by clicking on the link below to get your exclusive copy just under $10.
What we've got is a lot of forward-looking liquidity coming out of whether it's the weakness of the dollar, whether it's other countries using their balance sheets, a number of different mechanisms. And all of that to me is suggesting that the rest of this year is going to be very strong. And I was kind of thinking the NASDAQ was going to be a V-shaped recovery, and my God, it was a V-shaped recovery. And people are still underweight and short. I mean, it's a hell of a setup. The last Trump cycle in 2017, we had the same thing. The market corrected in the beginning because everyone's fearing tariffs and the same narrative. The Fed were raising rates and doing balance sheet runoff. And the market screamed higher all year because the Chinese were stimulating, the Europeans had to stimulate. So it feels like, even if the Fed don't do anything, I still think the Fed cut, but let's assume they don't. Well, that's not a prerequisite for the market to do anything. As you said, as long as rates aren't jacking higher, everything's fine. I've just come back from the Middle East. All of the sovereign wealth funds are now buying. Right, these are the largest pools of capital in the world. We're hearing it out of Saudi, out of Abu Dhabi, out of Qatar, and out of Bahrain. And why that's happening is because the US has become crypto-friendly. It's the green light. So the US will get some regulation through. There'll be a bit of a show and debating about it and the usual stuff, but they will get some regulation through, which is the clarity that all of the pension funds need. So they're waiting as well. So there is a lot of buying to come from the really big players who've been waiting. Like Goldman has not been able to fully build out its desk, and JP Morgan haven't. They've had crypto for a while, but only for certain types of customers. But they want to build out suites of product, but they've been waiting for regulatory clarity. So yeah, I think it's a big deal, actually. I really do. There is a set of dominoes that happen in markets. Financial conditions lead everything. For financial conditions, we use the dollar, rates, and oil, right? The three big financial conditions thing. What we found is that leads like the ISM and other stuff by about 9 months. And it leads liquidity by about 6 months, something like that. Liquidity is what drives Bitcoin and NASDAQ. And it leads it by 3 months. So global M2, let's say, leads Bitcoin by about 3 months. I found out, I was like, what's going on with gold? I put it against against financial conditions. It reacts in real time to financial conditions. Of all the things, well, because it's a pure currency asset, right? It's the pure thing. And so the moment financial conditions ease, gold moves. And so it's leading everything else, which is, we were kind of thinking, is it leading or is it doing something weird? Is it trying to price in some catastrophic risk? No, it was just pricing in the fall in the dollar The fall, rates didn't really fall a great deal, but the fall in oil. That's what the financial conditions are in the end.
Yeah.
It's the debasement of currency. It's the whole thing is the debasement of currency by excess liquidity being pumped into markets by any mechanism possible. At first, they used the balance sheet. Then we all figured that out and called that money printing. So then they did this Fed net liquidity trick, which was the balance sheet plus the Treasury General account and the reverse repo. Yeah. Then we figured that out. And then they moved to total global liquidity, which is including M2, which is stuff it on the bank's balance sheets. So force the banks to buy bonds. That's the game. The institutions are still either trying to figure out what this thing is. Yeah. Right? I had a conversation with one of the biggest kind of financial asset management firms in the world yesterday, based out of the US. And they're like, they've even got a crypto division, but they're other kind of where they allocate the assets. They're like, we don't know how to deal with this. So they're still trying to figure out what it is. Yeah. Like they haven't figured out it's a macro asset. Others have. The sovereign wealth funds obviously are just doing it for diversification of reserves. They're like, it's a technology, it's a diversification of reserves. So if the US is going to do it, we're going to do it. So there's different groups doing different stuff. There is a bunch of people who still don't really want to do the homework on it. They're like, we don't know, it's too volatile for us. But I think usually it's the first mover advantage in this. Saylor keeps going, it's going to push this out to others. And it's the others who are likely to blow up because, Millennium, they kind of know how to run their risk. Yeah. But it's so I'm always nervous of seeing leverage build up in a 70 vol asset. That is my rule of thumb is leverage in a 70 vol asset is going to nuke everybody at some point. Simple rule of thumb. I don't overcomplicate a trade. Just do the trade. Buy Bitcoin. And don't do it via MicroStrategy's options. And that's been a great lesson to me. And we all know them. There's a whole bunch of guys who love structuring complicated positions. Yeah. Those guys never make money. They never make money. They sound really smart. They never make money.
Raoul says this is the fastest adoption rate of any investable asset in human history. By the end of 2025, there will be 1.1 billion active crypto wallet. The speed of this growth is staggering and will lead to the fastest wealth accumulation we've ever witnessed. After a career's worth of research, every chart and study points to the same conclusion. Liquidity drives everything, and crypto will be the top-performing asset. Raoul has been telling investors for months that all the key factors are finally aligning, ushering in a period marked by parabolic upward moves in crypto prices.
We're in the final phase of this bull run. Let me guide you. We've launched DailyDoseCrypto Alpha, a free private Telegram group just for the DailyDoseCrypto family. Inside, I'll guide you through profit-taking strategies, real trading tactics, long-term crypto investing mindset. Only 500 spaces available, then it's closed. If you're serious about this bull run, click the private link to join now.
But I do think that he's going to have to go back and fix the bond market for the reasons being. He's a macro guy. He can see, like us, that the bond market is not functioning the way that it should do. He will have some insights from that, from the Treasury themselves, to figure out, okay, what is it that we need to do? And don't forget, when he came in, he said very clearly, I have three things I need to do. Lower the dollar, lower rates, lower oil. Those are the financial conditions of global GMI financial conditions. He's saying, I'm going to lower financial conditions. Nobody listens.
Yep.
He's telling you we're going to have a rip-roaring rally. Gold takes off based on exactly what he's saying. The only one he hasn't managed to achieve is rates yet. Yeah. So he will come back and sort that one out, I think. There is a risk here that we rerun 98, 99 or 99 because you've just taken all the tail risk. Let's assume that Saudi, the US, and Israel do a deal with Iran. That feels like it's going to happen. Let's say that there will be a ceasefire in Ukraine, and let's assume that the Chinese will come to the table, do something reasonable. Those three things happen. We've taken all of the left tail off the table. And people are going to be like, oh, but inflation's going to come back. And they're going to keep saying that for 18 months, which they kept saying as inflation's fall. So I think it is not a small probability that we have a really blow-off kind of next 9 months or so. I don't understand bonds anymore because they're not working according to the business cycle. They're not working according to the oil price. They're not working according to inflation. And it's not like that all of the auctions are failing. So it's not like it's a lack of buyers. So I don't really understand what is going on. It feels to me that liquidity is not in the bond market, and they need to do this SLR thing, which is basically allowing the primary dealers to warehouse more bonds.
Right.
So it needs. I think it's a liquidity issue, a plumbing issue, because I mean, they should be much lower. Look at inflation came out this morning, 2.3%. It's kind of like, are we having to ignore bonds here? Which is a weird thing for us, because we used to always check what bonds were doing to figure out whatever all other assets were doing. And I'm actually just focused using the dollar instead as like our key indicator, because that seems to be a better measure than bonds are right now.
Pal explains that the recent market pattern is a normal and necessary process to flush out weak hands and reset leverage. He highlights Bitcoin's strong correlation with global liquidity, which continues to support it even during temporary liquidity shortages. Both Pal and Bitwise CIO Matt Hogan see a dip-then-rip pattern, where sharp pullbacks are typically followed by significant rallies, sometimes up to 190%. They agree that patience is key, not panic, as the crypto market builds momentum and institutions position themselves for the next phase. Pal calls this critical stage the banana zone, signaling a major shift is coming. He's confidently increasing his portfolio exposure, viewing this as a once-in-a-cycle opportunity. Pal predicts massive capital inflows from pension funds and institutional investors, driving crypto toward becoming a $10 trillion asset class. He believes this cycle will outpace all previous ones due to fiat currency devaluation fueling widespread adoption and unprecedented investment, with Bitcoin poised for historic price milestones. Addressing the current economic uncertainty driven by tariffs and recession fears, Pal sees these factors causing market volatility that sets the stage for a major rally, one where Bitcoin will likely surge alongside the broader market recovery. However, he warns that if the market remains stagnant, Bitcoin could face short-term pressure. Ultimately, Pal stresses that Bitcoin's next big move depends on how these economic dynamics unfold, with a sharp recovery potentially just around the corner. For more Daily Dose Crypto news, check out these 2 awesome videos on your screen. Click now and we will see you on the next video.